Hi there, this is Andy, the Suffolk Audiophile. Feeling a lot better this week. I do apologise for the first video. I looked a little bit half dead in that, looking back on it now. Maybe I should have waited a week until I started these videos. But hey ho, it's up there now, so it is what it is. But this week I've come back to do D to F on my A to Z. D to F on my A to Z. Now, just a quick recap. When I started recollecting vinyl, I'm getting on for 5 years ago now. I sold all my record collection in the early 2000s, in the early O's, and courtesy of my brother buying my son a little MIDI system, I got back into vinyl in quite a big way and started collecting decent pressings. Audiophile pressings of certain records, and I've also been trying to rebuy the records that had an impact on me when I was growing up, when I was younger. First time round, when I first started collecting records, and when I started recollecting and establishing my collection, I thought, I need to. There's certain records I need to buy again. For two things. One, it will kickstart my collection from the bottom, and also they're going to be records that I know I'm going to want to listen to. I know that sounds weird, because you're only going to buy some records you're going to listen to, but I'm a but of a completist, and I will buy a record to complete a collection, even if I'm not 100% sure about the record. If I'm at a stage now where I'll buy a collection, or try to buy a collection of an artist's records. So, without further ado, let's go through D to F. So the first record is a bit of an odd one. It's not an odd one. It's a great record, and I love it dearly. This is The Doors, Waiting for the Sun. Now, I was introduced to this record by a friend of mine back in the 80s. I was getting into 60s psychedelia and the New York garage rock scene, like the Velvets, and also got into the West Coast sort of late 60s era stuff like Jefferson Airplane and the Doors. And this record was the first Doors record I bought back in the 80s, and it's also my favourite Doors record. It's got all the songs on it that I like. I don't think there's one song on here I don't like. This is the Analog Productions 45 RPM. So there's the sleeve. It's an excellent Staunton tip-on jacket, as you would expect from Analog Productions. The records, obviously 45 RPM. These are super quiet. I know there's a lot of people out there that haven't got a lot. They haven't got a lot of time for 45 RPM records, which is okay. That's their opinion. It is a bind, changing them over. But if you want the best sounding version of a particular record, 45 RPM really is the way to go, unless you're going to start looking at your HQRs and one steps. These Analog Production Doors albums, these 45 RPM albums, I've got the whole collection. I've got all of them, all Analog Production 45 RPM Doors albums, and they are second to none. They absolutely floor the 33 RPMs. Get in. Right, there we go. Get in. Right. Yeah, the sound quality of these is second to none. If you're on the market for a Doors album, they are worth checking out. Now, at the time of this video being posted, I think they're still in print, but the Discogs price is quite high. You're talking about $70 to $100 for one of these. They're not cheap, but worth checking out. Next one is a bit of a very odd one for me, really, because I bought this album on the strength of one song, and that is Duffy, Rock Ferry. I bought this record on the strength of the title track, Rock Ferry. It's a great song, and I bought the album. It's co-produced with Bernard Butler, and he done a fantastic job on this album. It's got a really good 60s vibe to it. It's almost probably could have been a better sounding mono record. You know, if it had been pressed in mono or recorded in mono or mastered in mono, it would have been just as good, and it would have had that 60s feel to it. As it is, it's still really, really good. I suspect it's digital. I don't think it's analog, unlike a lot of the other records in this review here. I think this is digital. This is the only digital one out of the lot, but it's still really, really good. She's not really done much the last number of years. I wouldn't say I'm a massive fan, but this is a great album. And like I say, if you want that 60s vibe, the sort of Dusty Springfield type thing, this is the one. Rock Ferry, Duffy, excellent. I was massively into this band in the early 80s, early to mid 80s, and that is Echo and the Bunnymen. So what I've got here is I've got all of their albums in chronological order, plus the Shine So Hard EP. I've got 2 copies of that. I haven't got any of their later stuff. This stops at Porcupine. The Grey album, I probably will get that at some point. It's not their strongest record. The Grey album was obviously the last one they'd done with Pete the Freitas before he unfortunately died. And, you know, I think the Bunnymen died when he did. You know, I think they lost that sparkle. But anyway, let's just go through this. So what I've got here, let's get through this. Right, so first of all, we've got Crocodiles. This is a second pressing. This comes with the free 7-inch single of Read It in Books and Do It Clean. I think it's Do It Clean. It's difficult to tell on this because this is a misprint as well. This particular copy, yeah, Do It Clean. This particular copy of the record has got the label for Do It Clean on both sides. It's a misprint or mispressing. So it's got Do It Clean label on both sides, but the record is correct. It's got Read It in Books on one side and Do It Clean on the other. The first pressings of this record were released without the single. So this comes in the white Corova label. Excellent record. This was produced by partially produced by, let's see, Ian Brody. The Chameleons, not the band. There is a band called the Chameleons, but the Chameleons here were a production company in Liverpool. So there's the cover. and the record. This was bought off Discogs, and it's in immaculate condition. You know, seriously good condition. I'm going to do a video of my tips for buying on Discogs at some point, probably when I've finished doing this A to Z. I think in the last 5 years of using Discogs, I've learnt a lot. So anyway, Crocodiles, second pressing. Next we move over to, I've got two of the same one here. Right, so the next one is Shine So Hard. Now, this was a soundtrack. The 4 tracks on here were on a film called Shine So Hard that was made by the Bunnymen. It was filmed at Buxton, a concert in Buxton in the north of England. This was filmed when they were deep into their camo phase, the camo period. They used to daub the stage in webbing and camouflage. History says that in the late 70s, the Bunnymen went to see Apocalypse Now, and the film had such a massive effect on them that they started incorporating that imagery into their stage set. I particularly think this is the Bunnymen at their absolute peak. They hadn't made it mainstream at this point. They were still that band from Liverpool, but they were sort of bubbling under the surface of the mainstream. People were taking notice of the Bunnymen at this point. This was also the period when McCulloch still played guitar. Again, I think now, when you see the Bunnymen now, the shadow of their former selves, Ian McCulloch should take that coat off and pick up a guitar again and strip the band back to a 4-piece like it used to be and do it properly instead of getting all these extra musicians and keyboard players and go back to basics and do it like it used to be done. It'd be brilliant. So this was off Discogs, and this comes with the original inner sleeve, which is that one there. Original inner. Again, it's on the Corova label. 1981. Again, I got this and it was absolutely immaculate. I am pretty particular when I buy records off Discogs. This is a first pressing, by the way, but yeah, I'm quite fussy, and I have certain criteria that I work to when I'm buying on Discogs. So get in. There we go. Oh God. Get in. Right. So yeah. So there's Shine So Hard by Echo and the Bunnymen. That's her first pressing from 1981, and now the other year they re-released it. Right. It's exactly the same. I'm not sure if it's the same stampers. Probably not. This is probably digital. But it was released on a camouflage splatter vinyl, which, okay, looks cool, looks okay. I have A/B tested it against the original. I suspect this is digital. The original sounds better. So, Shine So Hard. Right. This one is one of my faves. Heaven Up Here, Echo and the Bunnymen. This is a German first pressing. I actually bought this by accident. I didn't look at the information on Discogs properly. I thought it was a UK pressing, but it's a German pressing. But even so, it being a German pressing, it sounds fantastic. There's the cover. It's in pretty good nick. The cover's very good to VG Plus. The record itself, again, immaculate. I'll tell you now, guys, I have not got a record cleaning machine. I do it a different way to that. I have to do it all manually, but I do have pretty good results. I do want a record cleaning machine, but at the moment, my funds do not stretch that far. I've been looking at the degritter, which is a good machine, but I clean all these records manually by hand. I get pretty good results. But yeah, Heaven Up Here, brilliant album. Got some great tracks on it. I think this was one of Pete the Freitas' shining moments, this album. The whole band were actually on fire when they'd done that. And last but by no means least, Porcupine. Now this is a UK first pressing. This is on the Corova label, and again the cover. This was off Discogs, and this covers VG Plus. There's a slight crease in the corner down there, but the record itself is absolutely immaculate, and the sound's phenomenal. It's that typical 80s wobbly vinyl, but you know, the weight of the vinyl does not make a good sounding record. It has no bearing on it at all, as you know. So, but yeah, Porcupine, and that's the final one of Echo and the Bunnymen's list that I've got here on my A to Z. We're at E at the moment. Right, so moving on to F. Now, there's a couple of bands I could have included here, but I chose just one just to wind up this week, and that is Fleetwood Mac. Now, Rumours. Now, I've got 2 copies of this record. This copy is the recent reissue. This is all digital on the Palm Tree label, but it is a digital remaster. It's okay. When I bought that, I was happy with it. And Rumours is a classic album. It's one of those, it's one of those records that when I started recollecting, it was a no-brainer. I thought, Rumours, always liked that album. I need to buy it again. And I bought this. It cost me about £15, not a lot, £17 off Amazon. I got it off Amazon. One of the few times I bought records on Amazon. I think I've only bought records off Amazon probably a half a dozen times in the last 5 years. The majority of it's been through Discogs. But yeah, this is the recent digital repress. Now, after watching the In-Groove with Mike Esposito, he done a shootout video of Rumours, and the one that I'm looking at getting is the 45 RPM Analog Productions version of Rumours. Is it Analog Productions or NFSL? I can't remember, but it's the 45 RPM one. That's the one I'm looking for. That's the one that I'm aiming to get. But before that one, or before I could afford to get that one, I watched his shootout video, and he did a big shout out to the Japanese first pressing, which is this one. Now, when I bought this, as you probably know, the Japanese are sticklers for looking after their records. And when I got this, it was in immaculate condition. It looked like it had only just come out the shrink. It's got the Obi, which is all in one piece. This is a 1977 record, guys, and it is in immaculate condition. The record itself is flat, and the dead wax. And the important thing about this The important thing about this record is the Japanese first pressings. They had a multitude of different plates that they used. But there's one particular plate that they used, which was a Capitol mastering from the United States. Now, when you buy this Japanese first pressing, the key factor to look for is in the dead wax. It says mastered by Capitol, pressed into the dead wax, which this does. That means this has not been butchered by the Japanese mastering engineers, and it hasn't had the bass reduced or the high end increased. It hasn't got that wonky curve that the Japanese tend to do. This has got the same mastering as the original US master, but it's more consistent. As you know, Japanese vinyl is super quiet, and it sounds really dynamic. And as a 33 RPM pressing, I mean, this wasn't cheap. This cost me somewhere in the region of £50, I think. And that was from the United States. I bought this from a guy in the United States, so it's £50 plus about £15 shipping, I think it was, something like that. But if you can push the boat out, get this. Don't get this. This is, in comparison to that analog pressing, this is an abomination. It's okay, it's listenable, it's not bad, but it's a no-brainer. You need to get the Japanese. Get the Japanese. Okay, right, so that's this week's A to Z, or it's actually D to F. All right, thanks guys. Click that subscribe button, and I shall see you next week. Cheers, bye-bye.